Today on r/MaliciousCompliance, smart people doing exactly what they're told. A Spotify refund win, a courtroom payday, and an HR double dip. Let's go.
Spotify support told me to read their refund policy. So I did, and forced them to give me a refund. So, my Spotify premium renewed today because I forgot to cancel. I immediately checked their refund policy online and confirmed I was eligible. So, I canceled the plan, literally within minutes, and hopped on support chat to ask for the refund. Seemed simple, right? Wrong. The agent, Christina, gave me the classic runaround. She said the 14-day refund period only applies to your initial sign-up, and since I've been a member for months, I was out of luck. She even sent me a link to the policy to prove her point, telling me to read it. This is where the malicious compliance comes in. I did exactly what she said. I read the policy, and then I went deeper and found their full, legally binding terms of use. And what did I find? In Section 3, under withdrawal right, it states you have 14 days after your purchase to withdraw for any reason. A monthly renewal is a new purchase. My own research before the chat was correct. I went back to Christina and quoted the terms of use directly. She put me on hold to check backstage, then came back with the same denial. Her team was doubling down on the incorrect script, so I played my final card. I sent this message. Since this dispute is specifically about the legal interpretation of the withdrawal right in your terms of use, could you please provide the contact information for Spotify's legal department or the appropriate office for handling formal contractual disputes? The change was instant. Suddenly, she had to see what she could do. 5 minutes later, I've managed to ask some support with our backstage team, and we can go ahead and process a refund for you. They folded like a cheap suit. Their business model counts on you giving up. Don't. You are entitled to your money back.
This is what I call weaponized politeness. They said, "Read the policy," and OP said, "Sure thing." Then came back quoting their own terms of use like a lawyer on caffeine. That's the beauty of malicious compliance, doing exactly what they told you to, just better. You can almost hear the panic when OP mentioned the legal department. Suddenly, the refund magically existed. Lesson learned: don't tell people to read the fine print unless you're sure what it says. And speaking of people who learned the hard way, wait till you see what happens when a woman tells OP's parents, "Take me to court."
Take you to court? Okay. This was many years ago, so I apologize if some of the details are incorrect. It was the year of our Lord 2006. My big sister had just started driving on her own. My parents did as most parents did at the time. They bought her the biggest pile of junk car they could find. Relatively reliable, but it was a mid-80s gold Geo Metro. It was a beater. Rusty, dented, and dinged, very ugly. And importantly for this story, one of the mirrors was duct taped on. One afternoon in the fading light, she was driving to our local Pizza Hut to pick up her paycheck. On that fateful day, as the sun was going down, someone in a big black suburban-type vehicle backed into her front driver's side pretty hard. So hard, in fact, that the car was completely totaled. But luckily, my sister was fine. Both parties had insurance. They called the police to take an official report, and my parents started the hunt for a new car. Some time passed, and they got a letter from the Suburban's insurance agency asking for our insurance to cover the cost of the damage done to the Suburban. The driver claimed that my sister had been speeding through the parking lot and was therefore at fault. This was news to them. They grilled my sister, who swore up, down, and sideways that she was not speeding, and actually that she was going much slower than normal because as the sun was setting, it was hitting the windshield in such a way that made visibility difficult. After some digging, they found in the police report the sheriff's deputy had noted that the mirror that was duct taped on fell straight down. So not only had my sister not been speeding, but she was very nearly or completely stopped at the time of the accident. My parents' insurance wrote back saying she was not at fault for the accident. They were willing to accept the total they had already paid for the car, about $350. The lady who hit my sister responded back that she would not be paying for anything, as she was very confident she was not at fault, and told my parents they would just have to take her to small claims court. My parents responded, "Bet," and did just that. In order to get all the paperwork in line for small claims court, They had to take this junky little Geo Metro to an auto body shop and get an estimate for how much it would cost to replace the panels that this lady had totaled. Well, a car that old was difficult to find parts for, and so they were unable to find anything to replace the panels and the door. So they gave her a quote for how much it would be to repair those panels, as well as replace the tire and suspension bits that she messed up by backing into it, about $4,000. Just before court, they did attempt to go to mediation with her to try to get her to just pay the $350 that they had initially bought the car for. Unfortunately, or fortunately, she was still convinced that she was not at fault. Long story short, my parents were awarded the full $4,000 as it was determined that the lady did not check behind her thoroughly enough before backing out of the parking spot. And that's how my parents made $3,000 on a $300 car.
You know that moment when someone thinks calling your bluff will scare you off? Yeah, this lady really said, "Then take me to court," like it was some kind of power move. And OP's parents said, "Bet." That's the thing about malicious compliance. It's not loud. It's just following through exactly like they asked. She could have paid $350 and walked away, but no, she wanted to prove a point, and she did. $4,000 later. Honestly, that court ruling probably hurt more than the collision. But if you think that's satisfying, just wait. Our last story's proof that sometimes doing what HR tells you can literally get you paid twice.
Remove unapproved leave from the system. I think it's safe to post this now as the relevant company no longer exists. A few years ago, my job was on an 8-year contract that was nearing its end. I was looking at redundancy, and rather than apply for another job, I worked out I was financially better off waiting for HR's axe to fall and take the payoff. My boss, however, made other plans. Started taking time off and then left. Admin tasks were being ignored, and gradually the offices were becoming empty as people left. I had a lot of annual leave entitlement banked and decided to book a holiday as redundancy was likely still months away. I used the HR system to book 2 weeks. I informed anyone who would listen, put it in the calendar, etc. Of course, as my boss was now absent, nobody actually approved my leave in the system. I enjoyed my time off and came back to work, and all was okay. As we approached the final weeks of the contract, I had to tidy up loose ends and asked HR about final payments, including any unused holiday entitlement. What I got back was a snide dig about how I hadn't properly managed my account, as I had unapproved leave requests open that needed to be closed. This was the request for the leave I'd already taken. So I did what I was told and canceled the request, adding another 10 days back into my banked leave allowance, which the HR department then had to pay me for during redundancy. Thank you very much for the time off and the extra cash.
Now this is compliance at its finest. HR said, "Cancel the unapproved leave." And OP said, "All right," knowing exactly what that would do. The funny part? HR didn't even realize that unapproved leave was an old vacation OP had already taken. So by canceling it, those 10 days went right back into the system like they never happened. And HR ended up paying for them again. That's definitely not an honest mistake. OP knew it, but hey, when HR starts off with a snide attitude instead of being helpful, you just let them dig their own hole. Honestly, if HR can't keep track of their own approvals, that's on them. So tell me, which act of compliance wins it for you? The Spotify smackdown, the courtroom comeback, or the HR double payday? Let me know in the comment. And that wraps up today's perfectly legal chaos on r/MaliciousCompliance. If those cold calculated comebacks hit the spot, give that thumbs up button a little love. Got opinions? I know you do. Drop them in the comments. I read everything, even the spicy ones. And hey, if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that button and turn on the bell so you never miss another snarky saga. I'll see you in the next one. It's gonna be wild. Bye!